And I don't want to run my whole life.
In the same circle, and then you get deeper into that circle.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of brings me to a question that I didn't send you, but you happen to do it very fluidly. And so I wanted to talk about the importance of living authentically and being who you are authentically.
Man, so the reason why, the reason for a lot of my success now, especially online, is me being my authentic self. Like I remember when I first started doing speeches, right? On my page, I used to be so robotic. I literally would not cuss, which is totally not, I get it in certain, on certain podcasts, they don't want you to cuss and all these things. But if you know me personally, you know that I do. So the more that I like to dance, I'm a Gemini, so like if you go on my page, like I'm always twerking on my page, and that looks unprofessional, but it also draws people who, what I've realized is that people love when other people are authentic, because in the world of edited photos, edited videos, all these like made up personas so that everybody can like you, people gravitate more towards authenticity. That's what I've learned, and I had to learn. It's scary to be yourself, because especially as a content creator, I always told people that if I didn't have to show my face or be online and just like produce content just like in the darkness, that would be fine for me, just because I just want to get my message out. But it's terrifying, because especially, I'm sure you go through it, producing a podcast episode. It's like your baby, it's your art, it's work, and you're giving it to the world to see if they, and you're going to get negative reviews, you're going to get positive ones, but almost every time. I remember I did a philanthropy event, and it was one of the most successful ones that I've ever held. When COVID first hit, I was feeding the hungry back on my islands, and without a doubt, there was people chiming in like, oh, she's only doing it for clout, and she's only doing it to up her name and all these things. And I was like, sis, this is not like, so it is scary, but it's so rewarding that I could just be myself. Mm-hmm. It brings me a lot of happiness. Wearing a mask gets exhausting. Yeah, I used to have a whole closet full of masks, depending on who I was going to see that day. I literally would just walk in my closet and be like, okay, I'll pretend I'm this like confident girl who likes baseball and who this and that, and would wear it, and then would just question why I felt exhausted at the end of the day. And because there's no self-awareness in that. That was I always refer to that girl as pre-growth Asia. So the insecure Asia.
Yeah, but I think we all have that version of ourselves, right? We all start off as an ungrown version of who we are today. I mean, life is about growing, so we can't just come out, perfect. And
right? How boring would life be?
Right? But I think that you're very right about being your authentic self, because it is very heavy and exhausting to wear a mask all the time around whoever you're with. Like, I'm a Libra, and I'm also a very, easy person to please. As long as I'm around good company, I'm usually pretty good. Like, I'm not a person to be like, oh, I need this, and that. So it was always very easy for me to go along with the flow of somebody and then kind of get caught up into something that I don't really like doing, but I also don't like conflict, so I'm just going to go along with it with a smile and pretend like that's okay, but it's not authentic, right? And so I finally realized, no, there are things I enjoy, things that I do not enjoy, and it's okay for me to not enjoy them. Like, I don't really want the people around who only like me for the things that I'm kind of forcing myself to like, or just kind of going with the flow with. I want people to like me for me, those are the only type, like I want authentic, genuine relationships. And if you're not being yourself, you can't build and form authentic, genuine relationships.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, because one of the biggest realizations for me was that by wearing a mask, I would attract people with that mask, but it wasn't my people, because it were attracted to the mask. So oftentimes I would wear the mask and then attract partners or attract friendships, and then I would be like, these people aren't even like me, right? There was a lot of tension, and it just wasn't, it didn't feel aligned, but I didn't really know myself back then to know what even alignment is, right? But I kind of felt it in the thing about self-trust, right? The more that you build up self-trust, the more your intuition gets louder. Anytime you listen and honor your intuition, it gets louder. When you dismiss it, when you have this gut feeling and you dismiss it, it goes away in the bushes. And then you wonder why, where's my intuition? Why can't I hear it? It's because you've been missing it and telling it to go away and not listening to it. So that's, like I said, with the whole mask thing, I would attract people who weren't my people. And what I've realized in my journey, especially just this last year, last year was I use a theme word every year, and my theme word was unapologetic. So I was very intentional with that word last year and just did things for me. I didn't really care who I upset as long as it made me happy. And that included being my authentic self. And I attracted this amazing partner. I attracted amazing friends. I new friends as well. And they're my people. So, and then jobs and everything. And so when you align yourself with yourself and you're more authentic, everything else aligns with it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think when you live more in your truth, you attract more of the energy and everything that you put out, and you align more with who you're meant to align with and who you're meant to be. So I love that. And I like that you're a living, walking example of manifestation. Like, you show on your stories and on your Instagram very often that I wrote this down. This is what I wanted to do. And you walk the path and you show that it's capable, like you can do it. You've achieved it. And so it gives other people hope, whether it's with your relationship or career or everything that you've shown. I really commend you for that.
Thank you. I always type my captions out, and one of the captions that I saved was, my biggest flex is I do what I'm gonna say I'm gonna do. And that's period, right?
Yeah.
And it just become easy to me. It can start doing self-trust too, is doing what you say you're gonna do. If you say you're gonna go on a hike at 5 p.m. and you honor that builds your self-trust, that builds your confidence, that builds everything, that builds your self-esteem. And so that's why I always tell my clients, it may seem like, it may seem little, hey, I'm going to do my laundry on Wednesday, and then you don't do it. If you flip it, and if you are dating someone and he says, hey, we're going to go to dinner at 7 p.m. and he flakes every time, why don't you have that same energy with yourself?
Yeah.
Fails that doesn't build a trust with another person. That's that same energy when you don't do what you say you're going to do. And I get it's hard, right? It's motivation is something that is not it's not consistent. It's not it's fleeting, right?
Yeah.
So I call it an emotion, because you have to feel motivated. So we shouldn't rely on motivation. But my biggest thing with that is building habits.
Mm-hmm.
Habits will never fail you. The reason why I'm successful and I've done all these things is because I've built habits. Because even on the days that you don't feel like you brushing your teeth, you still brush your teeth, right? Because it's a habit. So, or drinking coffee in the morning, that's me. I automatically go to that. So
yeah. And I think a big thing that plays into that, as well as self-reflection and kind of just all of this, is perfection isn't real. I think a lot of people strive to be perfect, but perfection is you being able to live authentically without caring about the judgments and negativity that you're going to get back, because you're so whole and confident in yourself. Perfection isn't like you said, robotic and trying to be yes man or whatever. That's who I was in my previous life. And I mentioned to you before, like my first season of my podcast, I was like, this has to be perfect. Audio has to be perfect. So I would like pause it to align things, get my dog's noises out of there. If I messed up, I'd like rewind it. And then I listened to it. I hate listening to my first season because it doesn't sound authentic. It sounds like I was trying to make it perfect. It didn't sound like me. It sounded robotic. And so you have to let go of the perfection and realize that just be you, go with the flow. If there's mess ups, that's fine. That's part of the process, right?
Yeah, the thing that is really, really big in my program too is turn your inner critic to your inner bestie. We're never perfect. I don't even know. You can't name a perfect person ever. There's nothing that you can do perfectly, in my opinion. But the way that we talk to ourselves when we make mistakes makes a huge difference. I saw this video on TikTok where the girl, it's supposed to be a funny video, but it's her holding up, or she was like, me to my friends when they make a mistake, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're human, let's go get back up, like, you're amazing, don't even worry about that. And then she cuts it to her in the mirror, and then it says like, but me when I make a mistake, and it's like, oh my fucking God, here we go again. You always make mistakes. What's wrong with you? So just changing the way you talk to yourself. So now, even the stuff that we say under our breath, like, oh my God, I'm so stupid, or, oh, I'm so dumb, I forgot about that thing. I don't do that anymore. I say like, oops, I made a mistake. And even just those little changes in language, I just think words rule all.
Yeah.
Another big reason why I'm successful, everything I touch turns to gold. That's like one of my affirmations on my wall. Is your words. I recite that affirmation every single day. Everything I touch turns to gold, and it programs it in your brain.
Yeah.
And what your brain does when you create these affirmations, right, which is really big in my program too, when you say things out loud over and over and over again, your mind will collect things to support that. So if you say you're dumb, or I only attract toxic men, your brain is going to collect all the evidence to support that. So that's why in my last podcast episode, I talk about having to let go of identities that don't serve us. So if you keep saying you attract toxic men, what are you going to attract? You're manifesting that.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that manifesting is just positive. You can manifest negative things by saying it over and over again. So with the whole circling back to your question, I always go like super off road, but just during you're achieving a goal or whatever, when you get knocked down, watch how you talk to yourself. That's what will keep you going.
Yeah.
So.
And that I second, triple, fourth, whatever, because the first thing I did when I ended my last relationship and really recognized that I needed to change my life, I didn't want to play into the victim mentality anymore. The victim mentality was like, I suck, like I'm always unhappy, I'm never going to find a man who loves me, I'm never going to be able to get out of this hole. Like, everything was negative. But I found this book by Howard Falco called I Am. And it was basically about readjusting your ego and the inner statements that you have about yourself. So rather than everything that influenced you from the outside, your experiences, the opinions that people shoved on you, change those. So it's not I'm not capable. Write it out and say I am capable, I am worthy, or whatever your affirmation is that you want to change. And the book was really important it just was about changing your mindset. And that's really where everything snowballed from, because it really does start with your mind.
Yeah, I love that. And I just wrote that down because I love books. The thing about affirmations that no one told me about really, and I teach my clients, is that when we say I am capable or I am beautiful, if it's too far of a thought or a belief from what you actually believe. So, for example, I didn't like my body.
Mm-hmm.
So if I hate my body and I recite affirmations, I love my body over and over again, but anytime I say it out loud, the voice in the back of my head was like, you don't like love your body. Who are you kidding, right? So what I have my clients do is kind of soften the language in your affirmation. So I am willing to start believing that I love my body,
mm-hmm.
or I'm open to the idea that I love my body. It doesn't have to be straight like, I absolutely love my body, because then that voice that comes after that, that counters it, that like cancels the affirmation. So the affirmation should be a little uncomfortable, but not too unbelievable to you. That's when you should soften it. So I had to chime in on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, because sometimes it's hard to just go from 0 to 100, right? And it just feels so uncomfortable. You're like, wait a minute, like, let me shut that down. So I agree. Or just adding in the words, I'm capable of achieving this, or I'm whatever, but to make it fit for you. And I like to stress to people, like, you have to do what feels good for you. Like, there's all these avenues of what to do, or what worked for me or what worked for you, but you're supposed to take that and make it into your own journey, because what works for me may not always work for you. I'm sharing to help broaden the horizons and let you know that there's hope, but really find what's personal for you and will be positive.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in about fitting. So the thing about me, right, and the thing that I tell everyone is that I hated reading growing up. In high school, absolutely not. SparkNote everything.
Me too.
Just flip around and see what I can do. That's not how books are now. I feel like I'm like so obsessed with reading books, and you have to find one that speaks to you. That's why I always encourage people to actually open the book and read a paragraph and see if you like the language. Like Jen Sincero. Do you know who Jen Sincero is?
Mm-hmm.
She curses a lot and she uses humor. Not all books are boring like textbooks. And so when people, ask me about books, I give recommendations, but you also have to like open it and see if you like it or not. But that was a big thing before my growth journey. I was like, I don't want to read books. They're boring.
Yeah.
But only because you're choosing the boring books.
That's true, which is why you have to find the people who are their authentic selves. And some people are, the straight textbook, detail-oriented people, but there are people like me and you who enjoy some curse words in our life.
I don't read those boring books. It's just like I can't do it. It's boring.
Yeah, I need some personality, so I'm with you on that. Well, before we wrap up, let me pick like a final question or two to kind of wrap up the podcast with. So I guess we can talk about... Okay, there's one thing I wanted to ask you, which I didn't write down. But how did you get over... So a lot of people go from having unhealthy relationships, I was with a cheater, I was with this person who used me, whatever, to bringing that baggage over into their current relationship and their current partner, and holding their current partner accountable for what their previous partner put them through, which I think is detrimental to the health of a relationship. But do you want to speak on that for a little bit?
So how did I transition to a healthy relationship?
Yeah.
So a lot of people think I'm like joking when I say this, but so I'll get into like the funny part. But so what I realized is I made non-negotiables for myself. I call them non-negotiables. We have like traits that we look for in a partner, right? But what non-negotiables are things that you cannot, there's no bending that trait about that. So my top 3 is God-fearing. Like for me, I am a woman of faith, and I want someone ahead of me in their faith so they can lead me, so we can study the Bible together, and I, lead the way, who's a little more, a few steps ahead of me. So that's a non-negotiable. I remember I used to turn down dates because, like, either the person didn't believe in God or just was like whatever about it, but that's not what I want. So that's one of them. Another one is mental health. Takes their mental health seriously and has been to therapy. Not sorry, unapologetic, because you move different. Not even just therapy too. Like, it could be like just very aware of the importance of mental health. Another thing is passionate about giving back, because I think it just takes a certain type of man to really just be lit up by the welfare of others. That's just like my type of guy, because that's I'm that type of girl. So those are the 3 non-negotiables for me. So when I was going through these, what is it called? Like courting stages, where you get asked on a date, whatever, I would have those 3 things, scan my potentials. And if they didn't hit those 3 things, then not sorry. With this guy that I don't know if I should advise people to do this, but I light your ass up with questions. Like, you have to get past like texting. I'm very picky. And then after that, we talk on the phone. I talk on the phone with you before we go on a date, because I can like hang up, not rudely hang up, but like that could be done. I don't have to be like, I want to leave, like fake call me to my friends and all of the whole 9, right? So with my current boyfriend, we talked on the phone for the first time, and I was like, I have a question for you. And he's like, yes. And I was like, what? My main question is, what generational curses are you currently trying to undo?
Ooh, I love that.
Oh, not no like surface level. I'm not a surface level girl.
Me neither.
So I threw that at him, and I thought he was gonna crumble, right? And be like, oh my gosh. But he's actually been to therapy more than me, and very passionate about mental health and uplifting his community, especially for men in mental health. So he answered the question, and I was like, so like, oh yeah, like I will take you seriously. And that's really big for me, because if you have friends or a partner that demonize my ex, this is not shit talking, but he didn't understand mental health like that. So anytime I had like a panic attack or had anxious thoughts, he would be like, oh, like, here we go. Or like just didn't have understanding or patience. Now in my current relationship, he was very familiar with that, and he was also willing to learn about it. He took the time to learn about PTSD, anxiety, depression, so that in the case that I had, something, I acted in a way or said some things or had thoughts, it would be a breeze. Like, I felt loved, I felt heard, because people really only want to be understood and heard, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's the core of happiness too. And so I think that setting those non-negotiables in the beginning is really big for me. I used to just ignore red flags. I didn't have non-negotiables. When you're more intentional with your dating, you get better results. Mm-hmm. Before, I was very surface level, like, are you tall? Like, I was like, oh, he has to be tall, and he has to be above this, and that. And that's fine to have a preference, but you have other preferences as well, because that's very surface level. So non-negotiables, and someone who holds himself accountable. Because I dated someone who, obviously I'm not going to be specific with who it was, but they didn't want to change, and it was hurting us. And when one person is on a growth journey and the other person isn't, mm-hmm. there's a lot of tension. That's not going to work, because they're going to be weighing you down.
Yeah.
It's like I had to cut ties on my growth journey so that I could really step into my power. And you can't do that when you hang out with friends and situations and partners that are stagnant. So
Yeah.
does that? I don't even know if I answered that question.
No. Yes, you touched on some really good things. I was asking more so from the point, which I'm not discrediting anything you said because you brought up some really great points. But I was asking more from the perspective of like, so you've been cheated on before. You said you are always scared about your boyfriend cheating on you. How do you shut that voice up now with your current boyfriend and not like be crazy with him when he's out of town because of your previous experience with cheating? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Which was actually like last week he went out of town and I was chilling. Like I was like making pizza and just watching TV, and it was nice. It was a reflection of my growth, but thought work, just policing your thoughts. Before my growth journey, I didn't know, and obviously acquiring these tools like through a life coach or a therapist and like books and everything, I really recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what really helped me with my trust issues. The thing about the main thing is that a lot of people assume that because you do all this inner work and you go through therapy and all these things that you'll never get a negative thought.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely not. It's when a negative thought arises, how much energy do you put towards that? And the more that you water it, the more it's going to grow. So over time, it is a skill of learning and making it a habit of not watering that. Because I used to just water it and put so much attention, and the more you put attention to it, it grows. And so watering the positive thoughts, I think we're so used to watering the negative thoughts. And there's a reason why we water the negative thoughts. It's because when we tell ourselves stories over and over again for, like, I'm almost 30, so for 30 years, if I would have told myself, or I did tell myself, I'm not built for success. That was the story I was telling myself. To water the thought, the new story of I am made for success, it takes a lot more energy to water that, because this is already, the other story has been replaying. So I think that a lot of people, just to throw it out there, it takes a lot of work, but keep at it. It gets easier, just like saying the no. So really what I attest my growth to as far as trust is just hushing that anxious thought. And I posted this, I don't know if you saw my video of Sheila. I named my anxiety Sheila.
No, I didn't see your video.
Oh my gosh,
I'm gonna have
so
to look it up after this.
I'll just send it to you. So my boyfriend, anytime he looks up like things about anxiety, right? And he was like, hey, I saw this graphic on Instagram, and it says that if you name your anxiety, instead of calling it my anxiety, name it so that it's not a part of you, so that you detach it.
Okay.
And so my name, I just named mine Sheila, and we've been using this tool for the past 3 weeks. And it's funny because it's like, anytime I have anxious thoughts, my boyfriend is like, oh, it's Sheila, and I was like, yeah, she's bugging right now. Like I'm expecting her to be really loud when you go out this weekend, right? And just kind of detaching that. So just finding little tools to just know that it's not you, because before that, everyone says my anxiety, my depression. It's creating an identity, and once you create an identity for yourself, thoughts, behaviors, and all these things align with that identity. For example, if you say you're not a morning person, if you keep saying you're not a morning person, how do you expect to be a morning person?
Yeah.
If you keep attaching yourself to that identity. So detaching it, and then know what thoughts serve that identity and what don't. And it is a practice. So
Yeah.
that actually answered your question.
Yeah, but I mean, you made some good points with everything else you said. I told you I'm a go with the flow conversation type of girl. I'm not straight to the bullet. I'm flipping back and forth. We touched on like so many different topics, so it's fine. But I wanted to add to that it's important to detach from those and recognize that those are just kind of, your insecurities just yelling at you. But I think you have to take the time to recognize that the person you're with is the person that you're with. You chose them for a reason. They're not your ex, or they're not whoever you're portraying them to be, your insecurities are portraying them to be. So like take a step back and remember, like, oh, I'm with them for this reason. They're not going to make me feel this way, if you feel confident enough in a healthy relationship. So remember who you're with too.
Remember who you're with. Clean slate. I always say clean slate. You should always give someone a clean slate until they prove otherwise.
Yes, because if you always assume they're going to do it, like you said, that's manifesting. And also you're just bringing old stuff into new. You can't really have new if you keep bringing old stuff in. You're just going to have the same problems. So on a lighter note, let's talk about, you mentioned red flags. We don't have to talk about all the red flags because there are tons of red flags. We could be here forever. I do have a podcast episode where I talk about unhealthy relationships. There are 3 episodes if people want to familiarize themselves. But I also think it's important to talk about green flags and love languages. So let's just talk about the importance of love languages and how they help with healthy relationships, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think love languages, I wrote a blog post about this, and it's actually one of my most read ones. I just talk about, one of my love languages, the biggest one is words of affirmation. And my ex he's not a words of affirmation guy. He's a gifts type of guy. And I talk about this in my blog post where I don't know what love language it is, like when you like do things special. Is that also gifts too?
Acts of service.
Acts of service, yeah. Okay, so acts of service and words of affirmation are huge for me. And he would give me all these gifts, expensive gifts, and I'm not a materialistic person at all. Gifts are nice, that's cool, but I love words of affirmation. When someone writes me a really long text, I save every text, every card, everything. And back then I didn't know, we equate it to, oh my gosh, they probably don't, they didn't put that much effort into my birthday gift because he gave me beats one year, and they're really expensive, and I was and he literally just gave them to me. It was not wrapped up at all, just totally. But in his head, since we were in college, he saved up. We were broke college students, so he saved up a lot, and so it meant a lot to him. But when he gave it to me, I was wow, this is zero effort. I would have loved a letter. Save your money. I would have loved a letter, right? And I think those are really important to learn and push yourself past comfort zones to gift your significant other their love language. I know a lot of men are not big on words of affirmation because of society and how they were raised and everything, and so it's very uncomfortable for men to speak how they feel. But I think that love means leaving your comfort zone if that means the other person's happy. And leaving your comfort zone too, it only makes you a better person too. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really, really important for a healthy relationship just to show your partner different ways that you love them. Yeah. Because that's really what keeps the spark, I feel in relationships.
And I think those are really key points, and I think it's important to remember that love language, we each have our own love language. So like you kind of mentioned, just because your love language is, words of affirmations doesn't mean that his is. And so it causes a misunderstanding, and you have to give love the way that your partner likes to receive love, and your expectation is that they're going to give you love the way that you need to receive love to feel love. So it's not, I like words of affirmation, so I'm going to give you words of affirmation. No, that's not how it works. You got to kind of have to learn the other ones and give what your partner needs, because that's part of being in a relationship, recognizing your partner's needs and understanding what makes them feel loved and valued. And being their partner, you need to fulfill those things. So,
yep. Yeah. And I will chime in. I remember just this memory just popped in my mind. Like, he's not a big party attention type of person, right? Like, for his birthdays, my ex rather have played video games and had a nice dinner, like, at home. For me, I want the fireworks and theatrics, and because I'm a Gemini, so I'm like, I get energized around people. So for the longest, for our birthdays, it would be opposite. I would throw this huge thing for him, and he's like, I don't want this. And then he would do something super low key for me, and I was like, oh, like, he probably doesn't love me, right? And I just thought of this quote. It was like, the biggest distance between two people is misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so just learning and communicating and understanding each other is huge.
Yeah. So I always, I like to suggest that people take the quiz together and learn your own. You can take it by yourself, but also take it when you're with your partner so that you guys can understand and recognize in the beginning, so you can avoid those miscommunications and misunderstandings about each other later down the road. Because I know, like, I didn't do that in any of my previous relationships. So I kind of try to think about the things that I didn't do and notice the things that I did wrong that I could have done better to potentially have a healthier, just do better with myself. So
I love that, and I love that there's accountability in that, and I would like to say that when we look back on the things that we could have done better, we look at it with compassion and kindness, mm-hmm. and an opportunity to learn, not to shame ourselves. Because I remember I used to look back on what I could have done better, and I used to be like, oh my gosh, if you would have done this, we would have worked out. Or how could you do that? Like, just ridding the shame and the guilt from that just as a learning experience is huge. And props to you for looking at things that you could better.
Thanks. I mean, it's coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like, you can't go back in the past. And I've realized at that moment, I was so low. I was like, you have two choices. Be the angry, bitter bitch because you wasted almost 8 years of your life in this unhealthy relationship, or you can look at it, see how to never repeat those cycles, see where you went wrong, see where he went wrong, see where you could have done better, and like really break it down from every detailed aspect so that I don't repeat those unhealthy cycles, because that's not something I'm going to keep doing. Like, I'm not a victim. You can create your own life and you create your own happiness. So mindset is huge in choosing to do that. So
amen.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and discussing everything that we talked about today. I think we had a really good conversation. Do you want to tell everybody where to find you and how to contact you if they're interested in your services or just following you?
Sure, yeah, and I will lastly say that I loved all these questions. And not to talk shit about any other interviews I've done, right? But it's a lot of the interviews that I've done in the past are very, very like surface level questions, and I know they don't mean to do that, but it's just kind of to introduce who I am. How did I get there? That's it. For me, I'm a very deep person, so I'm like, let's talk about trauma.
Yes.
I know that not a lot of people want to do that, but I'm like, yes, let's talk about my trauma. Let's talk about, all the rewiring. So I love all these questions because I'm able to like dive deep and show my authentic self. So thank you for giving me an opportunity these were great, superb questions. And so how people can find me on Instagram, it's Asia, and then Hilario, my last name, Hilario. And then that's like my coaching service is www.asiahilario.com. And then my podcast is the Glow Up Season podcast, and that's on like every platform, I believe. So you can find me there as well.
Yay. Thank you again. I'm really glad you liked the questions. And I just want to say that a huge part of, I don't do superficial. I hate superficial, which is a lot of the reason why I feel like I'm isolated sometimes, because a lot of conversations are superficial. But I like the deep stuff. I like the not dark stuff, but like the emotional stuff. And that's what I want to make more common to people, because people don't like to talk or touch on those things. And I think that's important on our journey in life, to really be fulfilled and understand who you are and where you want to go and who's meant to be in your life. So but also you're a big part of the reason why I'm here too. I didn't mention that, I forgot, but your speech, like when you did your first public speaking at the I Am Collective event, I was like, dang, like I looked into you afterwards. I was like, she just started doing this. She's like being really vocal about all of her ugly stuff too. She's got a blog, she's speaking, and she's like going for it, swallowing her fear. And, you know, I'm a little slow with swallowing my fear, but, you know, you were part of my journey. So it was important for me to have you on here.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that totally made my day. And that's the reason why I put my story out. And so thank you. That just totally made my day. And these little moments, I like store it, like every DM, every message, every email, every like message that I get, I store, because it just pushes me and motivates me to do what I do. So thank you.
Yay, you're welcome. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you. So Eunoia Collective, thank you for tuning in to this episode. Make sure you follow her, check out her website. She has some funny stuff from TikTok too, and the videos that she puts on there. So give her a follow. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.